Trust Once Lost. Chapter 7. Bonus content. In the past, Scootaloo wasn't having fun anymore. The plan had started out the same way as all their plans did, with high hopes. Venture into the forest, be awesome, gain cutie marks, profit. Once they got into the forest, it was more daunting. They could look for years, go right past her, and never notice. Actually finding the lost filly had doused their spirits thoroughly. Seeing her limp and broken on the rocks like a busted doll, Scootaloo had been very relieved when she woke up. Seeing her lurching around and, well, delusional, had removed a lot of that relief and shifted right back to worried. All in all, it had driven home that the word rescue and search and rescue implied that someone was having an absolutely horrible day. Scootaloo didn't want a search and rescue cutie mark anymore. She didn't want her special talent to center around other ponies' misfortune. The journey back was grueling. Scootaloo wished they had gone with the original idea. She could have run back at top speed, and for once, she would have been delighted to have the adults take over. Instead, they ended up trying to both navigate the way back and also watch her stumble over every route.
Really? Who decided to put so many roots in a forest?
None of them were quite strong enough to catch her, but they couldn't just let her fall. The absolute worst part were the whimpers. Scootaloo didn't think she'd even realize she was making them, but everyone made them all cringe like they were the ones in pain. They were worn to an absolute frazzle by the time they made it out of the forest. It was a huge relief to see the adults rushing off with her to the hospital. Like a huge burden, much heavier than a filly, had been taken off their backs. It was only then that Scootaloo realized they had succeeded. There was somebody in trouble, they had gone out to help, and they had. As miserable as it was that she needed help, it was much better that they had been there to help than not. She didn't even care if they got grounded.
Maybe being search and rescue wasn't so bad.
In the present,
It doesn't surprise me she's imitating us,
Tenderheart said quietly as she munched on her daffodil sandwich. Both she and Redheart were in the staff room eating lunch.
How so?
Redheart asked, curious.
We're probably the only ponies who've been kind to her. So, she's probably trying to mimic us in order to fit in.
Her colleague fell silent at that, slowly chewing at her food. It broke the nurse's heart to know that there were creatures, or maybe even ponies, cruel enough to take advantage of such a young filly. It repulsed to think that they went against the nature of harmony like that. If she had her way, those responsible would be locked up in Tartarus with a key thrown out. But that was a matter for the Royal Guard. All Ponyville Clinic could do currently was make sure Green felt at ease and comfortable until proper, true healing could begin.
Well, let's get on with it,
Redheart said, finished with her meal. It was time to do her rounds. Activities of daily living. Nurse Redheart returned after a while. Maybe half an hour?
I still don't have a clock.
She had a drinking straw in her mouth. Thankfully, it was in a wrapper. She deftly unwrapped it with her hooves, and it finally sank in for me just how crippling my lack of magic was. Losing hoof magic for a pony was the human equivalent of being a double amputee.
Relax, breathe. This is temporary. I'll figure out how to use my hooves eventually.
I opened my eyes, and Redheart was waiting silently for me to finish my breathing exercise. No doubt she knew what I was doing.
Are you feeling better, Green?
She asked after a moment. I nodded.
Do you have any pain in your leg this morning?
She had returned to the script. There was an ache in my leg, and when I moved it, a bit of pain.
No.
I responded, shaking my head.
No pain.
The last thing I wanted was to take more painkillers. My mind was just starting to clear up.
Did you need to go to the bathroom before breakfast?
The nurse asked. For a moment, I was surprised by the question. Just how young was I supposed to be? Then, it hit me. With no hoof magic, I wouldn't even be able to clean myself after using the bathroom. My hind legs twitched as I realized I was going to need help with that quite urgently. I nodded again.
Did you need some help?
She asked. I squeaked.
Yes, thank you.
It wasn't as embarrassing for me as you might imagine. After all, I'd helped hundreds of patients with this sort of thing. I hobbled as quickly as I could without risking tripping over my cast, which wasn't very fast. I'd have preferred to walk at a more dignified pace, but I wasn't keen on testing the limits of this new body's continence. The bathroom differed from a human bathroom, but pretty much in line with what I was expecting. The toilet was a squat-style toilet, basically a trough in the middle of the floor, with a raised half-dome covering the ends, which the nurse had indicated was the front, as she guided me to stand over the trough. I had to spread my legs almost uncomfortably wide, and Redheart kept a hoof under my barrel for a moment, just to make sure I didn't slip and have my hooves go out from under me. Clearly, the toilet was sized for an adult pony, rather than a filly my size. I was meant to wait until she left the room, but when she half-turned her back and made a show of pretending to not be watching me, I knew she was going to stay. I mentally shrugged. If she was comfortable with that, so was I. I was only holding it out of courtesy at this point, and other concerns were quickly overriding that. After the nurse cleaned me and helped me to wash my hooves, even though I hadn't touched anything, I was feeling much relieved as she walked me back to bed. I made a mental note to keep better track of this body's needs, lest there be an embarrassing situation in my future.
You really had to go.
She commented.
I bet you feel much better now.
I couldn't help but blush, which was a novel experience for me. I couldn't remember the last time I'd blushed as a human.
Yeah, well, I can't even remember the last time I used the toilet.
I snarked.
Oh?
She questioned, seriously.
That was a joke.
I deadpanned. She cracked a smile, and it was clear her serious expression had been in jest.
Alright, hop in bed, and I'll give you your morning medications.
As I lay back in the bed, grateful that I was off my now throbbing foreleg, the nurse unlocked a drawer and started popping pills out of their packaging into a small paper cup.
What am I taking this morning?
I asked.
You've got 3 tablets, and then I'll give you antibiotics through the IV on your foreleg. Alright, what are the tablets for?
I clarified. Oh, to be old again, when people would treat me like I could understand what was going on.
Well, these 2 white ones are to help with your pain.
She explained.
And this red one is to help you go to the bathroom. They were giving me laxatives?
That meant I'd probably been on a lot of opiates.
What kind of pain tablets are they?
I asked, suspicious.
Are they opiates?
Opiates were good for what they were designed for, but I needed to keep a clear head, and the pain really wasn't that bad. They probably weren't opiates unless Equestria was a lot more lax with their controlled substances than Earth.
No, they're insusolimol. Never heard of it.
I responded.
Are they anti-inflammatories?
Redheart nodded, and checked my line of sight to the medication boxes, noting that I might just have been able to make out the writing on them, upside down and laying on a table across the room. She nodded again, to herself this time. I took the pills and lay back in the bed. I felt the chill run up my foreleg as Redheart pushed the room temperature dose of antibiotics into my vein with a syringe.
What are the antibiotics for?
I questioned.
Post-op prophylaxis? You had a urinary tract infection, but we cleared it magically.
The nurse answered.
The antibiotics are to make sure it doesn't grow back. The infection is probably why you were delirious when you came in. Oh, great.
If I was delirious, there was no telling what I might have said or done. Literally no telling, since they wouldn't tell me. Redheart had to spoon-feed me my breakfast. Until I managed to get control of my hoof magic, I had about as much bodily autonomy as an infant. Being able to live as a regular, whatever age I was filly would be amazing compared to what I had now.
That was a good question, actually. How old am I?
I asked suddenly, after finishing the meal.
You couldn't tell us your name, so we don't know. Roughly, though, how old do I look to you? We had someone take a look at your teeth, and you're most likely 8 or 9 years old. Though, you're a bit small for your age. Thanks. Are we still pretending that you don't remember anything?
I went to face hoof, but Redheart caught my hoof midway.
Please don't hit yourself.
She pleaded.
But I wasn't...
I protested, but she cut me off.
You don't have to lie anymore, Green. You can trust me.
She cut in.
When you think about what happens, does it make you want to hurt yourself?
At that moment, the utter stupidity of the situation forced the worst possible involuntary response. I face-hoved, yelped in pain, and had tears spring into my eyes.
Curse you, body. You failed me again.
It must be really hard to have all those thoughts in your head that you can't necessarily say without sounding crazy. But I'm sure after a while Green will have some way to vent that out. Maybe. Anywho, let's get on to our intelligent donators. Top donators are 630, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, and IronSky. Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin, Rolan, Stu Hex, Sword Brother, Immortal, Armycon, Library, Runescythe 9852, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Ride Soul, Batiswaffle, Shadow Moon, Luigi 88, Chancellor Crust, Big Smoke 369, Bobcat GJF, and many more amazing people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.